Inflation is the worst type of tax. It hides the true culprits behind the decline in people's standard of living, leaves bad cultural legacies, and turns people against each other. And in today's video, I will quickly explain you why I say so. First, why am I saying inflation is a tax? That's something that is not clear to everyone. What are taxes? Taxes are the way the government finances itself. You see, the government only has money because it takes from other people's income, from other people's resources, through taxes. You can say the state can also finance itself through debt, but in the end, money will still be needed to pay for this debt, which means the government will still need to put its hands on someone else's pocket. And sometimes, and I will use extreme cases here like Argentina or Brazil in the 80s, but sometimes the government's deficit is so ridiculously big that the state needs to start printing money to cover the bills. And when that happens, you can bet your currency will devalue, and next time you look, prices will be going up rapidly everywhere. In the markets, in the pharmacies, everywhere you look, things will be more expensive. Of course, the currency in which you get paid lost part of its value because money started to be printed. So think about it. Just like taxes are how the government collects money from the population to pay for its own spending, inflation works the same way. By printing money, the government also pays for its bills. The difference is that instead of taking the money directly from your pocket, the government does something many would say is even worse, because it takes the value, the purchasing power of the money itself. And that's how inflation ends up being a tax on all of us. And I say inflation is the worst form of tax because this way, by printing money, the state can take resources from the population without most people even realizing what hit them. Many won't even understand why their cost of living increased so much. And that's why printing money is much more appealing to politicians than raising taxes. If the state chose to finance itself through higher taxes, it would become obvious for everyone who's to blame for people becoming poorer, because they would see it in the bigger check they are writing to the state. But with inflation, it's not as clear. The real reason why prices are going up is just not obvious. So in the concrete reality of their lives, the most logical conclusion for people to get is this: prices are going up because business owners, because companies are raising them, because they are greedy. And it's natural for one to be pissed off with this and to think that these companies are just raising prices to profit at our expense. So one might think, capitalism in its full glory, right? Exploiting others for greed just to make some bucks. The thing is that while this conclusion seems logical, it's just not actually true. But if you don't know much about economics, it's easy to think that prices are rising because business owners are out to rob you, not because the state is overspending and destroying the currency you use. So that's why inflation is the worst kind of tax, and that's how it leaves a negative cultural legacy. Because by printing money, the state pushes people in the wrong direction, politically speaking. Because as they think capitalism is responsible for the situation, as they think things are worse because of free market, they start to become more inclined towards more interventionist and socialist policies like price controls, which only make things worse. But take Brazil in the 80s, for example. Brazil, which is where I live, went through a period of hyperinflation that was absolutely wild. In 1989, inflation skyrocketed to over 1700% by the end of the year. And why was this happening? Because the government was covering all its expenses by printing money. That was the root of the problem. But again, most people just didn't see it. It was such a crazy time that as soon as people got their salaries, they had to just run to buy all the things they would need for the month before it was too late, before the money they had just received lost all its purchasing power. So, what was the government's solution to fix this problem that the government itself had created? Did the government cut expenses in order to stop printing money, ending with inflation? No, of course not. So how did the government try to fix this mess? Well, simple. They set up hotlines for people to report on anyone who raised their prices. So, for example, if a supermarket increased its prices, it could be reported, and the person responsible could even face jail. I'm not joking, I will actually leave a link in the description to a report from that time about the Sarney inspectors, which was the name given to the people who reported the supermarkets that raised prices. The problem is that it's in Portuguese, but I will leave it in the description anyway. So, now do you understand what I mean when I say that the inflation created by the state ends up turning people against each other? In Brazil, it put regular people against business owners. Now think about how crazy and dishonest that is. The state, the real responsible for the situation, for the disaster, painting itself as the good guy, as the hero, while blaming inflation on others. When the truth is that companies and business owners were just as much victims of the state as the rest of the population. The result? Empty shelves. Of course, if companies and supermarkets cannot raise prices to keep up with inflation and risk going to jail for doing so, this means that they cannot make the profits they need to survive. So it ends up being better to just stop offering anything than to face the certainty of losing money. So that's it for today. I hope I made my point clear, and I hope that now you can understand first how inflation is indeed a tax, and secondly, how it is the worst type of tax. Well, that's it for today. See you next time.